All she had was the biscuit he gave her. The biscuit and the warning, "Don't tell anyone, or I will stop giving you food. You don't want to starve, do you?" Mabel sat on the cold floor, her small legs pressed together, her arms wrapped tightly around herself. The room was dark, her mother was not home. The house was silent, empty, lonely, just like every other day. She wanted to cry, but she had cried too much already. Her lips trembled as she chewed on the last piece of biscuit in her hand. The sweetness still lingered in her tongue, but inside there was nothing but pain. Between her legs, the pains troubled like fire. She did not understand why, but she knew something terrible had happened. Mabel's stomach still ached from the hunger, but even worse was the ache in her heart. In the city of Lagos, the morning sun peeked through the crack in the ceiling. Mabel, a 8-year-old little girl, opened her eyes to the same empty house. The small room she slept in had only one old mattress, covered with a wrapper that smelled of dust. The wooden table at the corner of the bed. No food, no water, nothing. Her mother, Sisi Joke, had left again. Maybe she had gone to work. Maybe she had gone to a party. Mabel never knew. She only knew that whenever her mother left, she would be alone for the whole day, sometimes for days. Her stomach groaned. She placed her hand on her belly, trying to calm the hunger, but it only grew worse. She searched the kitchen, but there was no food, no rice, no garri, not even salt. She sighed and sat on the floor. She was used to it. This was her life. She had learned not to expect much from her mother. Sisi Joke would only leave a little money for her school fees, and sometimes she would give her a small plate of food in the morning. But most days, Mabel had to find her own ways to survive. And that was why she started selling pure water. She had seen other children doing it, walking around the streets with trays on their heads, calling out, "Pure water, buy pure water." If she could do the same, maybe she could make enough money to buy food and eat. Mabel balanced the small tray of pure water on her head as she walked down the dusty streets. The sun was high, burning her skin, making sweat run down her back. She was tired, but hunger pushed her forward. "Buy pure water, buy pure water," she cried out weakly. People walked past her, some too busy to look, others shaking their heads, but she had only sold a few sachets since morning, and her stomach had started making noise again. Then she saw him. Baba Dada sat outside his house at the end of the street. He was an old man with grey hair and a long white beard. People in the neighborhood greeted him with respect, calling him Baba Dada. He smiled at her. "Mabel, come here, my child." She hesitated, but his voice was kind. She stepped forward. "Are you hungry, my child?" he asked, his voice soft. Mabel nodded slowly. He reached into his pocket and brought out a small packet of biscuits. "Take this and eat." Her eyes widened. She grabbed the biscuit and tore the pack open. The first bite was heavenly. It was the sweetest thing she had tasted in days. Baba Dada laughed. "You like it?" She nodded quickly, showing fast. "If you came back tomorrow, I will give you more," he said. Mabel's face lifted up. She had never had someone offer her food like this. From that day, whenever she went to sell pure water, she always stopped at Baba Dada's house. He would give her biscuits, sometimes even a sweet. She didn't know the sweetness was a trap. One day, after giving her a biscuit as usual, Baba Dada looked at her and smiled. "Mabel, my dear, today I have something special for you," he said. "Rice and chicken." Mabel's stomach grumbled at the thought. It had been so long since she had eaten a proper meal. Baba Dada stood up and opened the door to his house. "Come inside." She hesitated. She had never gone inside before. "Come, my child," he pet her. "Don't you want to eat?" Her stomach ached. Her hunger was bigger than her fear. Slowly, she stepped inside. A plate of rice and chicken sat on the small table, just as he had promised. Mabel's face brightened. She rushed to the plate and took a spoonful. The taste filled her mouth, warm and rich. She didn't notice Baba Dada closing the door behind her. She didn't notice the change in his eyes. The moment Mabel felt Baba Dada's rough hand on her shoulders, she froze. "Eat, my dear." His voice was low, almost like a whisper. Something inside her screamed that she should run, but her leg refused to move. She was too hungry. Baba Dada sat beside her on a woody chair, too close. His breath smelled of bitter cola. His hand moved slowly, brushing her back and arm. Her spoon continued to bring food to her mouth. "You're a good girl, Mabel," he murmured. "I take care of you, didn't I?" Mabel nodded stiffly. "Then let me take care of you properly," he said. His hands tightened around her waist. That was when she finally tried to run. Baba Dada was faster. His arms locked around her like iron. Mabel screamed, but he covered her mouth. The room was dark. The door was shut, and there was no one to hear her cry. She felt pain all over her body. A pain worse than hunger. A pain worse than loneliness. A pain that broke her into pieces. She stopped struggling and continued to cry. When Baba Dada was done, he gave her a biscuit as she ran away from his house. By the time Mabel got home, the sky was black. She walked slowly, her legs weak, her body sore. The house was dark as usual. Her mother was not home. Of course she wasn't. She sometimes forgot she had a mother. Mabel sat on the floor, hugging her knees. She should tell someone. She should scream. She should ask for help, but who will listen? Her mother never asked how she was, never checked if she has eaten, never even stayed long enough to notice anything was wrong. Her stomach ached again, hunger. She reached into her pocket and pulled out the biscuits Baba Dada had given her. She chewed slowly, tears slipping down her face. She tasted nothing but sadness. The days passed, but the pain did not. Mabel continued selling pure water, and she continued going back to Baba Dada's house. She didn't want to, but what choice did she have? There was no food at home, no one to take care of her. Baba Dada was the only one who gave her something to eat. So she went back again and again. Each time he gave her food. Each time he took something from her. She stopped feeling anything. This was her life now, and no one knew. Not even her neighbors, not her teachers, not even her own mother. Time passed like a slowly moving shadow. Mabel turned 9, then 10, then 11 years old. Nothing changed. Her mother, Sisi Joke, remained the same, absent, careless, and blind to her. Sometimes she would come home late at night, reeking of alcohol and perfume. She would throw a crumbled note on the table and murmured, "Buy food with that." Sometimes she won't come home at all. Mabel no longer expect anything from her. She had learned that hunger will always return. She had learned to survive on her own without her mother, and she had learned that Baba Dada would always be waiting. On Mabel's 12th birthday, she woke up feeling strange. Her body was heavier. Her stomach felt different. Something was wrong. At first, she thought it was hunger, but this was a new kind of emptiness, a new kind of sickness. Days passed, and her body kept changing. She felt weak and always dizzy. Then one morning she showed up again and again. Sisi Joke was home that day, lying on the bed, showing through her phone. When she heard Mabel vomiting, she frowned. "What was wrong with you?" Mabel wiped her mouth. "I don't know." Jumoke's eyes narrowed. She sat up and looked at her daughter properly for the first time in years. Mabel's face was pale. Her stomach had a small bulge. Sisi heart pounded. She stood up and grabbed Mabel's arm. "Stand up," she said. Mabel obeyed. Sisi looked her up and down. A terrible thought crept into her mind. She shook her head, pushing the thought away. No, it is not possible. But she needed to be sure. Without another word, she grabbed Mabel's hand and dragged her outside. They arrived at a small chemist shop down the street. Sisi pulled Mabel inside. The nurse looked up. "Ah, Madam Sisi, long time no see." Sisi didn't respond. She pushed Mabel forward. "Give her a pregnancy test." Mabel's breast caught in her throat. The nurse raised a brow. "She's just a child." Sisi folded her hands. "Do it now," she said. The nurse signed and led Mabel into a small room. Minutes later, the result came out positive. Sisi's eyes wide with shock and her hand shook. Her lips trembling, she turned to Mabel. "Who did this to you?" Mabel opened her mouth. No words comes out. Sisi's fingers crawled into fists. "I said, who did this to you?" Mabel swallowed hard. She wanted to speak, to say the truth, but the words refused to come. But she knew her mother won't care. She knew her mother won't protect her, so she lowered her head and whispered, "Nobody." Sisi slapped her. Mabel stumbled back, holding her cheek. Sisi's eyes was full of anger. "You useless child. You have destroyed my name. You have shamed me." Mabel wanted to scream. "You never care. You left me alone to suffer." But she stayed silent, because silence was all she had ever knew. Sisi stormed out of the chemist shop, dragging Mabel behind her. People turned to stare, but she didn't care. Her heart pounded with anger, with shame and with disbelief. Her 12-year-old daughter was pregnant. Her mind raced as she pulled Mabel into her tiny house and slammed the door. She turned sharply, her face burning. "Who is responsible for this?" she screamed. "If you don't tell me, I will beat the truth out of you." Jumoke stood still in silence. Sisi grabbed a wooden spoon from the table and raised it. "I don't know," Mabel whispered. Sisi froze. "You don't know?" Mabel nodded, eyes on the floor. "I don't know," looking scared. A wave of disgust and rage washed over Sisi. This child has brought shame to her. Sisi flogged the spoon around the room. It hit the wall and dropped to the floor. She grabbed her purse and stomped out. She needed to think. She needed to fix this before people start talking. Mabel sat on the bed, her heart heavy. She had never seen her mother that angry before. Not for the night she left her alone. Not for the days she had nothing to eat. Not for the times she had walked barefoot to school. But now that she was pregnant, her mother finally cares. Mabel closed her eyes, fighting back tears. Then there was a knock on the door. A slow, steady knock. She wiped her face and stood up. When she opened the door, her heart stopped. There he stood, Baba Dada, smiling, holding a pack of biscuits. Mabel took a step back, fear gripping her chest. "What are you doing here?" she whispered. Baba Dada shocked. "I heard your mother took you to a chemist." Mabel's body went cold. "How did he know?" Baba Dada stepped inside and shut the door. "I told you not to tell anyone, Mabel," he said, his voice calm but dangerous. "I didn't," she stammered. She smiled. "Good girl." He reached into his pocket and pulled out some money. "Take this," he said. "Buy something nice for yourself." Mabel stared at the money in his hand, her stomach twisting. He was still trying to buy her silence. She wanted to scream, to throw the money in his face, to tell him she hated him, but she didn't, because her fear was stronger than her anger, and because deep down she knew she was still that same hungry girl who had no one to save her. Sisi stayed outside in a small beer parlor, staring at the foaming liquid in her cup. Her mind raced. What would people say when they found out that her 12-year-old daughter was pregnant? Her friends would laugh at her, the church woman would gossip, and worst of it all, the landlord might throw them out of the house. But she did not reflect on herself, on how she had neglected Mabel, and how she did not fulfill her motherly rights for Mabel. What would she do now? Moral lessons from the story. Neglecting is a silent destroyer. A mother's love is meant to protect, guide, and nurture. But when love is absent, a child is left vulnerable to the darkness of the world. A mother's carelessness is the beginning of a child's pain. No child deserves to suffer for an adult's failure. If you are not ready to take care of your child, don't conceive them. Every child deserves love, safety, and future full of hope. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and comment for more stories like this. Thank you.